The AI boom just ran directly into a brick wall of real-world physics and local politics. Texas has officially halted new AI data center construction after discovering tech giants were draining municipal water supplies and forcing local residents to foot the bill for massive electrical upgrades. Sitting in the Texas grid queue right now are requests for 474 gigawatts of power against an all-time state record of 91. And roughly 9 out of every 10 of those gigawatts belong to data centers. Now, much of the discourse out there still revolves around whether AI models are good enough to justify the spending. But the issue that's actually breaking things right now is energy. So today, we break down the power crisis that threatens to ruin big tech's multi-trillion-dollar valuations, who's really been paying for this build-out so far, and why the most business-friendly state in America is cracking down on AI. My name is Guy, and this is the Finance Bureau. Okay, let's start with what Texas actually did here. On the 3rd of August 2026, Governor Greg Abbott sent a letter to the head of the Public Utility Commission of Texas and to Pablo Vejas, the CEO of ERCOT, which is the body that runs the Texas grid. The instruction was to carry out a full review of every data center project in the interconnection queue. Site control, capital commitment, who actually owns the project, what the demand forecast is really based on, what tax breaks have already been handed over, and also where the water comes from and where it goes. Fail the audit, and you don't get connected. Now, ERCOT responded the same day, giving major data center projects until the 4th of August to confirm how much electricity they expect to need. Now, one detail here explains the timing better than anything else. Under the state budget, Texas surveyed 377 data center operators about their power and water usage. 28 of them replied. And this is a Republican, deregulated, drill-baby-drill state that has spent 2 years branding itself as the epicenter of AI. So, if that state starts auditing the industry it sought to attract, well, the pressure came from somewhere it couldn't ignore. So, where exactly did that pressure come from? Well, to explain that, we have to start with some numbers. ERCOT's interconnection queue currently holds around 474 gigawatts of requested capacity across more than 1,800 separate requests. In January of this year, that number was 233 gigawatts. So it roughly doubled in 7 months. Meanwhile, Texas set an all-time record for actual electricity demand on the 22nd of July at just over 91,000 megawatts on a brutal heatwave afternoon. Run the numbers, and the queue is about 5.2 times everything the entire state has ever consumed at once. And Pablo Vejas told the Texas Senate Business and Commerce Committee on the 29th of July that large load demand could realistically hit 175 gigawatts by 2032, which is nearly double the current peak. However, ERCOT also admits those forecasts could be massively overstated because many of the projects in the queue may never actually get built. And that's the problem. ERCOT has hundreds of enormous projects asking for power, but it doesn't know yet which ones are serious. Normally, the grid connects new customers as they arrive. But when the proposed customers could collectively consume more electricity than the rest of Texas, well, that system ceases to make any sense. You see, these data centers aren't just asking to connect to the grid. If even a fraction of them get built, the entire grid will have to be redesigned around them. Which brings us to the part where this turns into a big political problem. Because building out transmission for a load that size is not free, and somebody was already paying for it, namely the average Joe Texan. Texas residential electricity rates have climbed from roughly 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour in 2020 to around 16.1 cents today. That's about 40% in 6 years. Now, to be fair, there's more at play here than just data centers. Fuel costs, weatherization after 2021, and general inflation have all had an influence on that number. But the outlook is unmistakable. The EIA is projecting unmitigated data center growth, pushing wholesale power prices in ERCOT's northern zone almost 79% above baseline. And the analytics firm Modo Energy projects Texas wholesale prices reaching $74 per megawatt hour by 2028 and $133 by 2033, against roughly $34 in 2024. Even if that's just one firm's forecast, nobody is disputing that prices are destined to rise in a big way. When a hyperscaler needs a new substation, power lines, or other grid upgrades, a lot of that cost has traditionally been spread across everyone using the grid. In other words, part of it ends up on your electricity bill. And the power those upgrades are being built for is largely going to 4 companies worth more than $12 trillion combined. Alphabet alone is worth about $4.33 trillion. So, a retired teacher in Abilene has been making a small, involuntary, unrecoverable equity contribution to the AI trade every month. Now, keeping track of a story that spans grid regulation and half a dozen state legislatures is difficult at the best of times, which is exactly why you should sign up for the Finance Bureau newsletter. It's completely free, and each week we break down markets, macro, and anything else that moves your portfolio. So just click the link in the description or scan this QR code on your screen to get started. Right, let's get back to Texas, because the state didn't just start scrutinizing these projects. It took things one step further and changed who pays for them. Under Senate Bill 6, projects that need more than 75 megawatts of power now face much tougher rules. For starters, there's a $100,000 screening fee just to have your interconnection study looked at. Then financial security of $50,000 per megawatt, which on a 500 megawatt campus is a $25 million deposit. And if you walk away or miss your milestones, you forfeit 80% of it. Developers now pay 100% of the dedicated transmission, the substations, and the local infrastructure their project requires. You must also install remote disconnect capability so that in a grid emergency, ERCOT can simply switch you off, in some cases within 30 minutes. And you must disclose your behind-the-meter generation and your water sourcing and recycling plans. And I'm not just stating all of this to make Texas look tough, because we've already seen the first test case of these rules. In July, Texas approved a 525 megawatt AI data center next to an existing wind farm. But there was a catch. If the grid comes under pressure, the data center can be told to cut its power use, even if the wind farm itself is producing plenty of electricity. It doesn't get paid for shutting down either. And if the project ends up using less of the grid infrastructure than expected, the data center takes the financial hit, not other electricity customers. So, Texas is taking measures to see that data centers are priced properly. And that pricing decision explains everything about what these companies did next, because, surprise, surprise, there's a workaround. Audits and those aforementioned pauses apply to projects connecting to the public grid, but they don't apply to facilities that neither draw from ERCOT nor feed back into it. So the workaround is gas. The Stargate campus at Abilene, backed by OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and Crusoe, runs on its own on-site gas turbines and skips the queue entirely. Meanwhile, Amazon and Vistra have filed to co-locate a campus alongside the 2,400 megawatt Comanche Peak nuclear plant, targeting up to 1,200 megawatts by late 2027. And Amazon also has a project in Pecos County that is fully off-grid, built around 35 gas turbines totaling 7.65 gigawatts, permitted to emit up to 33 million tons of CO2 a year. That single site would be one of the largest new pollution sources in the country, and ERCOT has no jurisdiction over it whatsoever. Now, an investigation by Floodlight and the Texas Tribune found that at least 38 Texas data centers, Stargate Abilene among them, obtained minor source air permits to install turbines and generators. Now, minor source permits are the category designed for things like dry cleaners and petrol stations. They come with lighter emissions controls and less public notice. And residents near Abilene have gone public about the dust, the stadium-grade night lighting, the exhaust stacks, and the rents. But step back from the politics for a second and look at what this means as a business model. This is a growth plan that requires building private power stations because the public grid won't take you. So, in reality, these software companies have turned into utility companies with worse margins. And those margins are even more important when you factor in debt. Across Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Oracle, and CoreWeave, combined capital expenditure in the second quarter of 2026 came to $189.2 billion. That's up over 91% year on year, and it equals 108% of those same companies' combined operating cash flow. Put simply, as a group, they are now spending more than the business generates. Alphabet posted a rare negative free cash flow quarter, burning $5.9 billion, its first negative quarter since it went public in 2004. Amazon's trailing 12-month free cash flow also turned negative at around $7.6 billion as AWS capex surged. Oracle and CoreWeave posted negative free cash flow as well. And Oracle is really the sharp end of it all. Total debt of $156 billion against operating cash flow of $32 billion for the fiscal year ended in May, with capital expenditure of $55.7 billion, producing a free cash flow burn of $23.7 billion. Guidance for the next year takes capex to $90 to $95 billion, and S&P projects that deficit widening towards $42 billion. On the 9th of July, S&P cut Oracle to BBB-, one notch above junk, flagging OpenAI as a key credit risk given it accounts for roughly half of Oracle's $638 billion order backlog. Oracle's 5-year credit default swaps went to around 203 basis points, an 18-year high against roughly 53 for the investment-grade index. And the market has been pricing things in. Oracle is down 40% over 12 months. CoreWeave is down 37%, Meta is down 22%. Now, for all of the action taken by the state of Texas to push back against the AI build-out, it is just one state. Except it's not alone. Bloomberg NEF estimates roughly 49.8 gigawatts of US data center capacity is at risk of delay out of a total pipeline of around 253 gigawatts. That's nearly 20%. Their estimate of developer revenue exposure ranges from $8 billion up to $15 billion. Over in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul signed an executive order on the 14th of July pausing discretionary environmental permits for hyperscale projects above 50 megawatts. That pause runs for up to a year. And roughly 12 gigawatts of requests are already stranded in the queue. Meanwhile, Maine's legislature passed a moratorium in April before the state governor vetoed it. Virginia's regulator has ordered Dominion Energy to shift the full cost of dedicated grid upgrades onto data centers instead of households after bills in Manassas jumped 30%. Voter support for data centers in Virginia has fallen from 69% in 2023 to 35% this year. Prince William County rejected a major campus 8-0. Paulding County in Georgia has halted new projects until 2027. 13 Maryland counties have temporary bans. Palm Beach County in Florida rejected a $2 billion campus after the developer's water estimate of 5,000 gallons a day came back from county staff at 100,000. Industry trackers now count over 100 local pauses nationwide. And according to Gallup, only around a quarter of Americans would support a data center being built in their own community. Then we have the issues with equipment. Bernstein puts lead times on high-voltage transformers at 3 to 5 years. GE Vernova's gas turbine backlog hit 116 gigawatts in the second quarter, with deliveries already booked out to 2031. Siemens Energy's order book is at a record 162 billion euros, and it's expanding transformer capacity by 50% by 2030 just to catch up. So, to sum it all up, the AI build-out is facing a long list of obstacles, and it's not clear that it can overcome them all. The determining factor for whether AI can really advance from here has little to do with demand. The main question is whether regulators are willing to approve the infrastructure needed to support it. Because a huge part of the AI boom has relied on the assumption that power and new infrastructure would all be there when companies needed them. But Texas, among other jurisdictions, is now showing that isn't guaranteed. Projects are being audited, companies are being asked to put up more money, and in some cases, the grid can just tell them to cut their power use. So, hundreds of billions of dollars are being committed to AI infrastructure without any guarantee that the electricity will be there to support it. And that means the AI boom could run into trouble because there simply isn't enough power to keep building it. An AI boom could turn into an AI bust at the flick of a switch. But what do you think? Is Texas being sensible and just protecting its own residents, or is this all a big threat to the AI build-out that could cost us dearly in the long run? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to see how differently China is approaching the AI race, then you can check out our video on that right over here. Okay, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Guy, signing off.